There are definitely bits of the girl code that I liked, but I didn't love the episode as a whole. This is the 10th episode of the 27th season of The Simpsons, directed by Chris Clements. And the main narrative focuses on Lisa. I'll get to that in a moment. The subplot is about Homer, who loses his job because of something that Marge posts on social media. I won't say what she posts exactly, but it does go to show that you need to be really careful with what you put online, because if the wrong person sees it or interprets it incorrectly, it could have really disastrous consequences. And that's kind of what the whole episode is about. And there's a speech to that effect that I'll talk about in a moment, but it's a spoiler, so I'll leave that for now. But Homer goes back to a job he had at a Greek restaurant where all he needs to do is clean the dirty dishes. And there's this great couple of seconds where it highlights the fact that there are just two components to his job: dirty dishes, clean dishes, and that's all he needs to consider. And it does make me think, sometimes I wish I could just switch off my brain and do a task where I don't need to overthink things. I would get very bored very quickly because I can't switch my mind off. But it goes to show that life, when it's its most simple, is sometimes when we can be our most free and our most happy. And this is what we see with Homer. So I like what they did with that. I like the messages there, how thought-provoking it was. It's not my favourite subplot, but it was okay. The main narrative focuses on Lisa, who ends up coding this app with a teacher who's teaching a coding class at Springfield about... Well, it's an app called Conrad, and the app is designed to let you know the outcome of what your social media post will be like. So it will predict what could happen if you post whatever it is you're going to post, which, let's face it, would be an amazing thing, because I'm sure everybody has tweeted or Facebooked something and it's not gone the way they intended, because tone is very difficult to portray online. Emojis help a little bit, but it's still very difficult to know how something will be perceived, and that app would obviously be fantastic. If you post this, you'll lose your job. You might think twice about posting it. So I think it's a really interesting concept, but there is a speech that, well, helps to flip things around, but I'll get to that in a moment. I did like the coding scenes. I liked seeing the characters all in Lisa's front room working away. Comic book guy was there as well, and it was decent. I liked it. It was a good story, and I think it went in the right direction. I didn't love what happened with Conrad. I just didn't care that much. Voiced by Stephen Merchant, which is kind of cool, but the actual development of Conrad's narrative, it's just not a direction I loved. I really didn't care for it. I didn't find it interesting. I found it almost gimmicky in a way, even though it had an important message. I just didn't care for it that much. So the episode didn't conclude in a way that I found that satisfying, but the journey was still really good, and I really enjoyed the episode for the most part. So, a spoiler now, I'll discuss why I think the speech that was given was actually really moving. I say speech, it was a couple of sentences, but spoilers for now. So, towards the end of the episode, Conrad actually gives this speech about how it shouldn't be up to him, an app, to determine what people should post online, because instead of relying on smart technology, humans need to smarten up and think before they act. And I thought that was so true, because we rely more and more on technology, that we are just knowing less and less. I know generations above me always complain about how people of my generation don't even know anybody's phone numbers, which is very true. It is. And I'm sure my generation are looking at the next generation saying, well, you don't even know how to do basic tasks. And that's just going to continue. The more and more we'll rely on technology. Technology is amazing, but it can't replace human ability, or shouldn't replace human ability. And I think Conrad saying you shouldn't rely on an app to tell you what to post. You should actually be smart about it and think before you post, I think is something that's very timely and very true. I still love the idea. I love the idea of a future predicting app that will tell me whether something's worth posting or not. But at the end of the day, I should use my brain. I should work out whether the tone is portrayed correctly, whether the audience is the right audience. I shouldn't be lazy and let an app do it, and that's kind of the whole point. So very thought-provoking. not the most entertaining last 5 minutes or so, but ultimately, I think this was a pretty good episode.